Yes, I go from my perspective. So one thing is that when I was younger, I was raised in Hounslow. I don't know if you know this part of London. It's voted one of the saddest places in London to live. But the main issue relevant to your question is that everyone there speaks exclusively slang in school. So no one is speaking formal English, and this just led to a deterioration of my ability to express myself. And I think I told you the story on WhatsApp. Is one day there was some fight around the corner, and then one of the older kids said, "Yo, Jay, Wagwan, what happened? What happened there?" I said, "What happened in that fight?" And I wasn't able to express myself. I kept saying like every 2 seconds. It was just, and I realized that this is such a hindrance. This is going to be a hindrance if I don't work on this. And I can't remember who said it. It may have been Jordan Peterson. I can't remember who, but someone said like, "Command over English is a weapon," or "Command over English is."
Yeah.
In a day and age where you don't need to be physically strong, command of English. Okay, maybe it wasn't him, so we'll have to find out later on who said it. But either way, that really resonated with me. And then when I joined rather, Brain Labs, the company that we met at, one of the greatest privileges was that majority of the company went to private school or went to Oxbridge. And I thought by osmosis, this is finally the time where I can work on my English. And I saw how people who were maybe 5 years younger than me had so much more authority just because of their ability to use rhetoric and speak. And I thought I have to work on this now. I have to just listen, just constantly pay attention and just try and pick up what everyone's saying. Prior to Brain Labs, I spent 1 year in India and training to this classical yoga teacher training. And within that it was every day from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. And a big part of that was that you had to, I don't know what the word to use, but you had to transmit, for want of a better term, this practice exactly verbatim as it was taught to me. So there was hours of content I had to memorize by heart. And I think that had an effect on my speech, first of all. And then going to Brain Labs afterwards and hanging out with so many intelligent people added on to that. And I think because you're unlike the rest of the people there, I felt you didn't have this pretentious vibe. You're very relaxed. So it was very easy to speak to you. But I think with some others, and then it's nothing against them. It's more my insecurity than them, just to be clear. I felt very hesitant to speak. For the first year, I hardly spoke in socials because I just felt the way I'm presenting myself is not what they're used to. It's a much lower caliber of not a different caliber, a different way of expressing. I wouldn't say lower. So I actually think there's a lot of beauty in London slang. I think it's very fun when I do express it. But for a global world, when you're wanting to make money, when you want to have an impact, in this context, I think command over clear English is so powerful.
Interesting. How did you
Yeah.
find going back to maybe some of those social circles or in
Yeah.
Hounslow? Do you find yourself like very binary, switching in and out of it, or is it more that there's is there a spectrum? Like how do you find it?
Did you speak any other language?
No other
Okay.
languages.
Do you know a friend who speaks multiple languages and they meet someone who speaks another language that they speak and they just naturally switch and there's a rapport builds instantly?
Yeah.
So I find it great in terms of rapport building, just as much if I met someone who speaks Polish. I might say a few words in Polish, but knowing that you don't speak Polish, I'll switch back to English. So depending on the environment, if everyone understands these expressions and mannerisms, I'll probably speak mostly slang for that interaction because it's a quick way of expressing myself. There's a reason it's developed, right? Because you can express so much in a familiar way. But if there's some people that do speak like that, some that don't, then it might you go in and out just to build some familiarity.
A question on that in terms of the Polish language as
Yeah.
well. How would you describe your Polish accent when you speak Polish? Is it from a specific region, from a specific kind of community? Is it from does it have like an international twang to it?
One thing I think that's quite unique to Britain is how much variability there is in one language. Liverpool, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. I think other languages will have dialects, but you won't hear as much with accents. So that's not as common, I think, in other languages. And maybe people can correct me on this. But in Poland, there's maybe three distinct variants. And the one that I would speak, or the one I've learned from, I wouldn't say I sound like this. I probably sound like an English person speaking Polish. But the Polish I've learned is the capital city, Warsaw, Polish. But a bit more formal. I think my family are a bit more on the sort of formal side. Maybe similar to the Brain Labs vibe, but the Poland equivalent.
Interesting.
So they wouldn't be swearing, no curse words, very eloquently expressing themselves. So I guess there's a mixture of English language, slightly grammatical errors, and then a nice use of vocabulary that wouldn't be as common. If that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
on the some of the words used, you once said to me, pretty sure you're talking about Polish,
Yeah.
that the way in the Polish language, you address someone who's older than you.
Yes, yes.
There's like a very set way of doing that. And your like hypothesis or theory was that this also impacts the way that you kind of generally see them or respect them or
I mean, there are studies on this.
Oh, okay.
Especially with
Nice.
with women who speak Japanese and women who speak English. And they're much more dominant when they speak English language compared to Japanese because it's a hierarchical language. So
Interesting.
in Polish, you're saying, so let's say you were 10 years older than me and we're meeting in Poland. I wouldn't say, would you like a drink? I would say, would sir like a drink? Now imagine how that transfers into a debate. We're having a debate. I'm like, and you're saying, are you telling me this? And I'm returning with, is sir telling me this? You know, how can that not subconsciously impact the mood? So there is that, I think, but I actually quite enjoy it in Poland. I like the respect. But I've never been in a position where it's infringed upon my freedom. So maybe if I was living there, maybe if I was a young woman and I had to call everyone sir, maybe there would be a negative. Or if I was in the office as a young intern. But in day-to-day life, I find it quite pleasant. Even English, there was a you and a thou.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
and thou was to friends and you was to superiors. And then everyone became you.
Interesting.
So even in English, they used to be there.
Nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but I still think if you go to certain societies in England, you would still say sir or madam. It's small pockets.
Yeah, and in small
yeah.
pockets, and particularly around like the royal family and things like that. There's all a royal protocol and that sort of thing. But in general, it's just something we wouldn't even think about.
Yeah, but I do think to answer your question, it does add a layer of submissiveness when someone may have not earned it. You know, they're not necessarily smarter than you; they're just older than you. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
Or respect, depends on what word you want to use. Is it respect or something? I don't know. Yeah.
So a question back on the language is that something you're still working on, or is it something that you still kind of focus on or think about?
Yeah, even now, so if I send a WhatsApp clip and I say once, I'll restart the whole WhatsApp clip.
Oh, interesting.
Even if it's a 5-minute clip, I'll have to, that's a self rule. If I say like, if I say if I say so, maybe so, I'll have some leeway there. But any filler words that don't have a purpose to it, just once, I'll make the whole clip.
Nice. That's quite a good way to train yourself in those scenarios because like in most social interactions you couldn't just start from the beginning, so you just have to like keep going.
Exactly.
Whereas with voice notes you do have that ability to course correct. You also have a thing around sending voice notes where you tend not to send super long ones.
Yeah. So that's because if someone sends me a super long voice note, I find it very tricky to respond to. So if you send me every 2 minutes, I can respond to each of those key points. When there's an 8-minute audio clip, I need to pause it, respond. So just to make it easier for the other person to reply, I do it in small snippets. But it also helps with this technique of self-correcting every clip, because to do an 8-minute clip back from scratch would be very annoying, and just it'll be diminishing returns will kick in at that point. So for two reasons: one, it makes it easier for the recipient to reply, and it means that if I do restart, I don't have to go back too much. Another thing, just to answer your previous question, working on it is trying to make sure that reading is always an aspect of my life. I think reading, especially classical fantasy or classic literature, I think through osmosis, that adds to your vocabulary. Rather than directly, I'm going to study, I'm doing things I enjoy, which is talking to friends and reading. And I think both of those have just become a means of education. Rather than, for example, I'm actively studying Korean now. That's an active pursuit. But this is just happening as a byproduct of whatever I do.
Nice. Makes sense. And in terms of career, what's prompted the most recent interest?
So I've always been interested in Japan and China since I was young.